properly, which is unfortunate. I think it would have looked just a whole lot better if it was one piece. So this is pretty much going to be the first time that I'm actually going to get to use this mill. This rubberized material showed up at just in time, and I, I I really like it. I was so tired of, you know, taking chips out and get them out and scrape them out and everything else from from my last meal. This one, with that rubberized stuff on there, the chips just lay on top and you swipe them off. And of course, to mount that vise down, the nut wasn't wide enough, so I'm making four of the most expensive washers I've ever had in my life. When you consider it's $41.40 for the material plus the time it's taken to make these, if any washer company had that kind of math, they'd be out of business in no time. Nonetheless, they all turned out really good for what I needed, and now it's just a matter of getting the vise put on there, and eventually I want to put the rotational table I have in beside it, so I don't have to switch in and out. So my vise is a lot closer to the right hand side of that table than center. In fact, it's on the right hand side of center. And once I got everything in there, I figured it's time to check this out, and I don't know if that's even going to be visible, but it's good enough for now. It's not really moving all that much, and for what I need to do, I'm not overly worried about it. Now this is where I actually kind of impressed myself by how big these chips were coming out of this thing. From spending the last year at home here with a hobby mill to running this thing. Like I started off a little weary, being my hobby mill would take maybe a quarter of that amount right there as a huge cut, and this thing doesn't even realize it's running with that small cut that I'm taking now. So it's just a matter of time, and I started to see what this thing would actually really do, and I am really impressed. Like, just look at the size of those chips coming off of there. That would have been like 10 passes easy with that little milling machine I had, and just wanted to just going through that stuff. Um, and I get it. It's aluminum, but still, this thing's just moving material way faster than that other milling machine I had. So I'm completely happy, and I wish I would have never bought the other milling machine. Hindsight and all, but I did, and that's life, learning experience. But I'm super glad I now got this email. It's just amazing how well this thing's working. And everything on it just seems a lot tighter. Like it just a pleasure to work on. Um, However, I do got to get it done, and so there is the piece for the Z-axis, and everything's great until I put it there and realize I screwed up royally on dimensions on it. However, I was thinking I'm a little tight on space in this. Like on the other side for the Z-axis, there's the stops for the power feed, and on the side this way, there's both the Z-axis and the Y-axis DRO readers on it, and it did make it a little tight. I probably should have went online and seen how anyone else did it. And those readers there, they are not the reader, but the scale, where it was threaded in, they had to get drilled out to allow for screws to go through. And basically, for these blocks to put on, I just took those screws, the hex screws, and cut slots in them, so I could just use a screwdriver to get them tightened in there, and that just worked fine. After they're in there, then they got drilled through the centers to actually attach them to the milling machine. And overall, I was pretty impressed with the design, but it sure gave me some headaches getting to that point. So as you can see here, I got a transfer punch in the center there. I'm just going to get that up and put it in a position where it's not going to interfere with anything, and start to get it drilled in. Um, so yeah, it goes down quite a bit. And you can see how that the reader on the Y will actually just go right into that recess that was left on it there. At least, that's the plan. The other thing I got to say about this, where it's mounted, there's about 4 or 5 different screws in there for adjustments. You can see on the back there, there's the aluminum plate to hold the reader head in. The reader head's actually going to go on the inside of that, to try to keep it. I'm trying to keep as much off this as possible. If it could have been turned the other way around, and the head was on the knee, and the scale was on the body, it would have been so much easier to build this thing, like a fraction of the time. But it pretty much had to go on this way, um, just so it wouldn't, get destroyed by anything splashing down on it. Besides, it was fun designing it. um, the one big thing was on that y-axis. You can see how it'll go into that cavity. Well, I kept thinking, and I knew that's how it was going to work, but I kept thinking, if that's in the cavity there, and all of a sudden you lift the z-axis, you're going to, destroy the y. But no, it's like they're both on the knee, so they both work together. They're not independent of each other. And for some reason, 4 or 5 times I kept falling back on and thinking that, oh no, this ain't going to work. This is just going to, bust that once I move it. Finally, I convinced myself I was wrong, and carried forward, and I was. And on this, with that recess in there and it's being opened up, you can actually, well, you can see it now. It's going down, and the y-axis, the scale reader is actually going right in over top of that bracket. So it works. It's all good. Don't have to ever go back to that and say, "Oops, didn't do that right." Then of course the cover's gone on it to ensure that as much moisture as possible does not go in there. And I did run the milling machine with the pump going, and with those blue things in there, you do get some, when the pump's running fast, you do get some fluid flopping over the backside. So just a just a good thing to have everything covered up as possible. So now that those are on, it's time to put the power feed on for the x-axis. And I do have to say, again, the instructions just sucked, like really bad. But the other thing, when I put the power feed on, the kit came with a bag of screws and gauge, not gauges, but screws and you know shims and everything else. But there was no screws to actually attach the power feed to that black housing, which came with the power feed. The screws I had on my original one, they were too big, and the ones in the kit were too small. So I actually had to, go out on a Saturday afternoon to one of our local stores and get the metric screws, because I don't keep any metric screws in my shop whatsoever, or if I do, it's just the odd one. Nonetheless, after getting the proper screws on there, it all went together nice. Well, this is my attempt to not put in the proper screws in, and it didn't take too long to figure out that what I had there just was not going to work. Um, I think I had a quarter 20 on a hex head, and yeah, it's just not doing it. So shortly after that, I got to take a road trip and go get the proper screws. And, once I got them on there, I did put both of those black metal rings or the retainers on. Um, there was only one on the original, but I with that, I noticed that there's quite a bit of that brass exposed. So I figured, might as well just, I got the other ring. It's either going to go on there, it's going to go in storage. And I figured, might as well just throw it on there and call it good. When I first tightened this up, it just would not move, and I was going, "Oh, great! What's going on here?" Um, it also hit on the machine handle there. It didn't take very long to realize that black cover was just misaligned enough that the lead screw going in was just a little cranky. So adjusted that black cover, and that thing just works perfectly. For the digital readout here, originally I was going to put it on the arm where the power and everything is on the other side, but I figured I might as well just put it on the left side and call it good. And you can see there's like a huge gap in there that has to get filled. Originally I was trying to put the washers in that came with it, but eventually I gave up on that and just went with a couple shims and tapped the shims in the top, and that just tightened it right up. Um, I think my first attempt here of tightening this thing, the one nut tightened and the other didn't, and the next thing that nut went flying across the room. Anyways, got it all done. Everything is now hooked up to this except for the RPM. There's actually a little magnetics sensor that you can hook up, and if you put a magnet on the spindle, it'll tell you how fast your machine's going, which I like the idea, and it's already there. So somewhere down in the future, I'm going to do that. Um, though I can move this machine into its permanent home before worrying about that. So the only thing left to do for that is just run some more airline. So I actually have airline now. When this was sent, this was, disconnected and packaged really nicely, like wrapped up in bubble wrap and wrapped up on some cables. Of course, I took it off, I put it in the back. I realized that it wasn't an M attachment, which my shop's all M for the airline. And I put a wrench in that when it was on the back, and I gave it a turn and snapped it. So I went and I bought another one that, looks almost identical. Hooked it up after getting everything, tightened up on it, and the thing just leaked air. Um, so I got some soapy water, sprayed everything around it, and found out above the oil chamber on it, that top piece of glass or dome or whatever, it was leaking. So I took it apart, um, cleaned it all up, put it back together, tightened it up, put it back on, hooked the airlines up, and now it was leaking from the top of the valve. And there's just no way to fix that. At least no way that I seen to fix it. So great, you know, spend a bunch of money on junk. So I do have to get another one ordered. But in the meantime, the original one there that's broken, it's just hanging off the back and it's just doing fine. I just need something, a little better than that, um, for long term on it. Especially since that's the thing that oils my power drawbar. This blue stuff, it works really good actually. It is messy, like it's really messy, but I redid all the lines I have from my air, and they don't leak. Like I went from having the compressor go on about every 30 minutes because of leaking in the system, to the compressor now goes on maybe once a day. And once a day, I consider a victory. I don't think I'm going to chase it down too much and worry about that compressor coming on for 2 minutes a day, just to top itself up. So nonetheless, this thing went together really good and didn't work worth a damn. So this is second last thing I got to mill, And this is going to be like for the T slots to hold those limiters that the switch bottoms out on. The first thing, I had to do is cut a channel in this thing. And actually, I cut it on both ends. And my math was a little bit out, but not by much. And the channel had to go a little deeper than the T-slot itself because, well, I guess I could have filed or ground down the screws. Anyways, with the Woodruff cutter, I had one in there without any coolant going through it, and that thing snapped. The chips were binding to it was overheating. I was getting maybe quarter inch, and then it gum right up. So running the coolant in there completely solved that problem. Luckily, I had another cutter I could use that was the same size that came in the kit, and now it's just a matter of getting that thing I built installed, and then after everything's together here, it's just a matter of getting the limits on that set so I don't crash out anything running the motor. And again, I just really, really like this machine. Like it's just, and this is on low. Like this is only running maybe 400 revolutions per minute. I haven't even switched this thing into high yet, and I'm just super impressed with how this thing's cutting. Like that depth I'm cutting right there, that's way more than my last milling machine would ever cut. Um, don't besides good praise, I don't know what to say. Like if someone's looking to get a top of the line hobby milling machine or a small knee mill, if you got the ability to get the small knee mill and you got the room, do it. Way nicer than a hobby machine. Like way nicer. And the options, that are available on this thing as far as calibration is just insane, compared to what a hobby machine would have. Anyways, this here is the last of the build. That's the little switch that's going in there. That thing had the same curve as the switch on the front, and it didn't make any sense to me. Straight made more sense, putting a block behind it. Like originally, I was just going to try to bolt it up to the knee, but yeah, that that needed to go on first. but straighten it out just made so much more sense. Now those I guess it's a limiter switch, but the plungers on either end are going to do it. So there it is. It's pretty much done. I got to do some cable management, and I just totally love this thing. By the way, I bought it at Modern Tool out of the Lower Mainland. They also have a business in Alberta, and you got to pick it up or ship it yourself.